A black mail-order bride was rejected for her color until everything changed when a millionaire rancher saw her as his perfect match. "You're Layla Bennett." The man swallowed hard, his face turning pale as if he had seen a ghost in broad daylight. "This isn't going to work. You didn't mention that you were that you were black." Layla finished the sentence Daniel Harper couldn't bring himself to say, her heart sinking as she stood on the station platform. The delicate hat she had bought especially for this moment now looked like a ridiculous detail amid the humiliation. Weeks of travel, months of passionate letters, a trunk full of hopes, and the promise of a new beginning, away from the discrimination of the big city, all of that crumbled in seconds the moment Daniel finally laid eyes on her. "In your letters, you wrote so well. I imagined," he stammered, taking a step back, the bouquet of flowers wilting visibly in his sweaty hand. "Couldn't you have warned me?" Layla took a deep breath, gathering every ounce of dignity she had left. "Tell you what exactly? That my skin is as dark as night, but my feelings are as real as yours? You never asked." Daniel looked around nervously, noticing the curious glances of passengers and station employees. In the small town of Cedar Creek, a well-dressed black woman was already attracting attention. A black woman being publicly rejected by a white man created an irresistible spectacle. "You have to understand my position. The community here, my business," he muttered, taking another step back. "I can pay for your ticket back. You seem educated. I'm sure you'll understand." Layla felt a chill run down her spine, not from sadness, but from a controlled anger that simmered silently. In his letters, Daniel had written about the lonely heart of a middle-aged widower who longed for companionship, understanding, and a new chance at love. At no point did he mention that this heart had a color preference. "I spent all my savings to get here," she said, her voice steady despite her inner trembling. "I have nowhere to go back to." Daniel reached into his pocket and pulled out some crumpled bills. "This should cover a place to stay for a few days until you work things out." That's when a deep voice cut through the tense air like thunder on a clear day. "Is that your solution, Harper? Throw money at the problem and hope it goes away like it always does?" A tall man appeared behind Daniel, his piercing eyes fixed on the merchant who now seemed to shrink in size. He was dressed in simple but visibly expensive clothes, the kind of simplicity that only the truly wealthy can afford to display. His suntan face betrayed a life spent outdoors, but his posture exuded unquestionable authority. "This is none of your concern, Logan," Daniel replied, but his voice betrayed his uncertainty. "It becomes my concern when I watch a man I've known for years behave like a coward." The man named Logan turned to Layla, his gaze softening slightly. "Miss, allow me to introduce myself. Nathan Logan. I have a property just outside the city." Layla nodded stiffly, suspicious. From experience, she knew that kindness from strangers often came with a hidden price. "If I may be so bold," Nathan continued, "I offer you lodging at my home until you decide your next course of action. We have guest rooms that are rarely used, and my housekeeper would be delighted to have company." Daniel visibly choked on the offer. "Logan, you can't be serious. What will people say?" Nathan smiled, a cold smile that didn't reach his eyes. "The same people who do business with me every day. The same people who depend on my land for their livelihood. I'm curious to hear what they would say." Daniel paled even more, understanding the implied message. Nathan Logan wasn't just a rancher. He was the rancher owner of half the productive land in the region. What no one at that station could guess was that while Layla wavered between wounded pride and practical necessity, she carried with her not only a trunk of clothes, but also a secret that would forever change the balance of power in that small community. A secret that would make Daniel Harper bitterly regret the day he decided that skin color determined a person's worth. If this story of prejudice and dignity touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to find out how a humiliating rejection would become the catalyst for a turnaround that no one would ever forget. The Logan estate, was not just a ranch on the outskirts, as its owner had modestly described it. It was a stately Victorian mansion, surrounded by acres of thriving fields and lush pastures where thoroughbred horses grazed peacefully. As Nathan's carriage passed through the ornate gates, Layla felt simultaneously impressed and suspicious. "People here aren't used to differences," Nathan explained as he pointed to the main house. Cedar Creek was founded by traditional families who remain conveniently stuck in the past. Daniel Harper is just a symptom of a deeper disease. The housekeeper, Mrs. Green, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and a stiff posture, greeted Layla with professional courtesy. If she was surprised by the presence of a black guest, she didn't show it. "I've prepared the blue room, the one with the best view of the garden," she said, leading Layla through hallways decorated with priceless paintings and antiques. At dinner that evening, served in the imposing dining room, Nathan explained his history. The son of a banker from the North and a teacher who had embraced abolitionist causes, he had inherited not only a fortune, but also strict principles about equality. When he moved to Cedar Creek years earlier, he had been regarded as eccentric, too rich to be ostracized, but too different to be completely accepted. "And what is your story, Miss Bennett?" he finally asked after describing the businesses he ran. "Your letters must have impressed Daniel for him to extend such a formal invitation." Layla hesitated, but something about Nathan's direct manner inspired confidence. "I'm a teacher. I was a teacher in Boston. I taught literature and history at a school for girls of color. When the school closed due to lack of funds, I realized I needed to start over somewhere else." What Layla didn't mention was the real reason behind her letters: the unexpected inheritance from her grandfather, a man who had spent his entire life as a butler for a wealthy family. An inheritance that included not only carefully saved gold coins, but also ancient documents that could change the fate of certain lands in the Cedar Creek region, documents she had hidden in a false bottom of her trunk. In the days that followed, Nathan gave Layla something rare: space to think. The mansion's library was a treasure trove of knowledge, and she immersed herself in books on local history, geography, and the laws of the region. When asked about her interests, she would simply smile and say she was broadening her horizons. News of her presence soon spread throughout the small town. Visits to the Logan mansion suddenly increased. Curious neighbors, merchants' wives, even the local pastor, all suddenly remembering urgent matters to discuss with Nathan. "Just look at that," Nathan muttered during afternoon tea after a particularly obvious delegation had left. "You've become the local attraction without even setting foot in town." Layla smiled bitterly. "I've always been an attraction, Mr. Logan. The difference is that now I have a porcelain teacup in my hand while I'm being watched." It was during one of these visits that Daniel Harper finally worked up the courage to show up. He arrived unannounced, hat in hand, his face a mask of false concern. "Logan," he greeted nervously, "I just came to see if Miss Bennett is comfortable." "Absolutely delighted," Nathan replied dryly. "Why don't you ask her personally?" Daniel's face paled as Layla entered the room, wearing one of the elegant dresses. Mrs. Green had altered for her no longer the exhausted, humiliated woman from the station, but a lady who moved with confidence and purpose. "Mr. Harper," she greeted him coldly. "What an unexpected surprise." "Miss Bennett," Daniel fiddled with his hat in his hands. "I came. That is, the community is concerned about your situation." "How kind of them," she said. "It's not proper for an unmarried woman to remain in the residence of an unmarried man, especially when she's black," Nathan finished, his voice dangerously soft. "Go on, Harper. I'm curious to hear how you intend to finish that sentence." Daniel swallowed hard. "The church committee is considering options to help her return to Boston. A collection is being organized." Layla smiled, the kind of smile that didn't reach her eyes. "How generous. But I'm afraid my plans have changed. I intend to remain in Cedar Creek indefinitely." Daniel's eyes widened. That's impossible. You don't know anyone here. You have no job, no family? I have a job, Layla replied calmly. Mr. Logan has kindly offered me the position of librarian on his estate. Apparently, generations of Logans have accumulated books without ever organizing them properly. Daniel looked at Nathan with a mixture of shock and barely contained anger. You can't be serious, Nathan shrugged. I've never been more serious. Miss Bennett is educated and competent. My library has never been in better hands. What Daniel didn't realize, as he stumbled through increasingly feeble protests, was the true significance of that job. The Logan Library didn't just contain classics of literature. It also housed land records, legal documents, and the complete history of the region, including details that many traditional families would prefer to keep buried. When Daniel finally left, defeated and furious, Nathan watched from the window as he hurried across the garden. Hell, try to make your life difficult, he remarked. The little humiliation you inflicted on his ego today will not be forgotten. Layla nodded, a new determination shining in her eyes. Let him try. While he's busy spreading petty rumors, I'll be digging much deeper than he ever imagined. What Daniel Harper couldn't know, what no one in Cedar Creek couldn't guess, was that the hours Layla spent in the library had a very specific purpose. Amid yellow documents and dusty records, she was beginning to piece together a puzzle that would reveal an uncomfortable truth. Cedar Creek's traditional founding families, including the Harpers, had built their fortunes on land that did not rightfully belong to them. And while the local society was abuzz with rumors about the woman of color staying at the Logan mansion, Layla was quietly setting the stage for a revelation that would shake the community to its very core. 2 weeks later, the small hall of Cedar Creek's town hall was overflowing. An emergency call had brought together the founding families, local merchants, and farmers from across the region. At the center of the commotion, Daniel Harper gestured wildly, his face red with indignation. It's an outrage. Logan is openly defying our traditions by keeping that woman on his property. Decent families are concerned about rumors of inappropriate behavior. As murmurs of agreement rippled through the room, the doors swung open. Nathan Logan entered calmly, followed by Layla Bennett, who walked with the dignity of a queen. An uncomfortable silence fell over the room. I appreciate the invitation, Nathan said, his voice firm, reaching every corner of the hall. Although I must correct a misunderstanding, Miss Bennett is not here as my guest, but as the legal representative of a matter that deeply concerns all of you. Daniel laughed nervously. Legal representative? A woman of color with no education or authority. Logan, have you completely lost your mind? Layla opened her briefcase methodically. Actually, Mr. Harper, in addition to being a certified teacher, I have legal power of attorney as a direct descendant of Joseph Freeman. The name struck like lightning in the silent hall. The older faces paled visibly. Joseph Freeman doesn't exist, Harper retorted quickly. He's an urban legend. Curious, Layla replied, removing yellow documents from her briefcase. Because I have here the original deed signed by the governor in 1866, granting Joseph Freeman, my great-grandfather, and a man freed after the Civil War, the land that today constitutes approximately 60% of Cedar Creek, including your store, Mr. Harper. Judge Thornton adjusted his glasses to examine the documents Layla now presented. This looks authentic. It's a forgery, Daniel shouted, but his voice trembled. The supporting records are here, Layla continued, unperturbed, including the account of how Joseph Freeman was forced to flee after attempted lynchings in 1870, and how the founding families divided his land among themselves, forming what they called the Cedar Creek Property Committee. Nathan then spoke. The Logan Library keeps copies of all land records in the region. Curious how the specific 1870 to 1872 session was missing until Miss Bennett found cross-references in other documents. Reverend Miller, an elderly man, bowed his head. My father mentioned that story. He said it was a sin buried deep. We're not here to punish the descendants for the sins of their ancestors, Layla declared. I'm proposing a deal. The creation of a community foundation that benefits all citizens of Cedar Creek, especially for education and affordable housing. Daniel Haper laughed nervously. That's absurd. No one will believe this charade. That was when Attorney Jeff, a respected 3-state lawyer, entered the hall. The documents have been verified by the State Historical Records Commission. They are authentic, and I am pleased to inform you that the lawsuit has been formally filed. The hall erupted in raised voices. Amid the confusion, Daniel lunged furiously toward Layla. You planned this from the beginning, he hissed. That's what you were hiding in your letters. Layla remained calm. No, Mr. Harper. In the letters, I was just a lonely woman seeking companionship. It was your immediate rejection of me when you saw me that made me realize what kind of man you really were. The kind of man who would judge my great-grandfather for the same reason you judged me, solely because of the color of our skin. You're going to ruin us, he muttered, pale. No, she replied softly. I'm going to right a historical wrong in the fairest way possible for everyone. The difference between us, Mr. Harper, is that I've faced discrimination my entire life, and yet I don't wish anyone to lose their home, not even you. As Daniel Haper collapsed into a chair defeated, the city council withdrew to deliberate on Layla's proposal. Nathan approached her, admiration evident in his gaze. You could have demanded everything, he said softly. And made myself just like those who stole from my great-grandfather, she replied. Justice isn't revenge, Nathan. It's restoration. What no one in that room could imagine, as they watched the woman they had rejected and underestimated, was that the true transformation of Cedar Creek was just beginning. The message that would echo through the corridors of power for generations to come would not be about a woman who came to destroy, but about one who, even when wounded, chose to rebuild with dignity and vision. And while Harold Pierce faced the ruin of his reputation, Layla Bennett and Nathan Logan exchanged a look that held promises far beyond land and documents, a look that spoke of a future where belonging would no longer be a matter of color, but of character. 6 months after that historic meeting at City Hall, Cedar Creek had been transformed. The Freeman Foundation, established with funds recovered from historical injustice, was already funding scholarships for disadvantaged youth and community improvement projects. At the center of this transformation was Layla, not as a vengeful figure, but as a visionary who saw beyond the pain. Daniel Harper's former store now housed Cedar Creek First Public Library. Ironically, a place where forgotten stories could finally be told. Daniel himself had left town weeks after the revelation, selling his properties for a fraction of their value and leaving without saying goodbye. Rumor had it that he was working as a clerk in a neighboring town. His pride is diminished as his bank account. You could have destroyed him completely. Nathan remarked one fall afternoon as they strolled through the gardens of her estate, now partially converted into a cultural center. Most people would have demanded every last penny. Layla smiled, watching children playing on lawns that had once been the exclusive territory of the elite. Revenge would have given me satisfaction for a day. This, she gestured to the space around her, will give us satisfaction for generations. News of the Freeman affair had spread beyond Cedar Creek, attracting journalists and historians interested in documenting similar cases of historical land injustice. Layla received invitations to speak at universities, sharing not only her personal story, but the legal methodology she had used to reestablish the truth. During a celebratory dinner in the main hall of the Logan Mansion, now officially named Freeman Logan House, after the discreet marriage of its owners, Judge Thornton raised his glass in an unexpected toast. To the woman who taught us that justice is not just a legal concept but a daily practice, he declared. his voice breaking with genuine emotion. When Layla arrived in our town, we thought we knew exactly who she was, based solely on her appearance. What a humbling and necessary lesson we learned. At his side, Martha Webb, now principal of the new community school, nodded vigorously. And to think it all started with a cruel rejection at the train station. Nathan took Layla's hand in his. "The best decision Daniel Harper ever made was to reject you," he murmured with a smile, although I doubt he would agree. In the old Central Square, where once only traditional families were celebrated, a new monument had been erected, not a grand statue, but a simple bronze plaque telling the story of Joseph Freeman and how his unjustly taken land had finally returned to its purpose of serving the entire community. As night fell over Cedar Creek, Layla watched the city lights from her new porch. She had arrived as a rejected stranger, a black woman deemed unfit to belong. Now, she was not only accepted but respected, not for bowing to the expectations of others, but for standing firm in her principles. When Nathan joined her with 2 cups of tea, Layla reflected on the journey that had brought them there. "You know what's ironic," she said. "Daniel rejected me because he couldn't imagine sharing his life with someone who didn't fit into his narrow worldview. In the end, that's exactly what destroyed him. While you thrive because of exactly what he despised, your strength, your history, your truth." Nathan added, "The lesson Cedar Creek learned, and one that would echo for generations, was simple but profound. When we judge someone based on superficial characteristics, we not only deny their humanity, we blind ourselves to the extraordinary value they could bring to our lives." And as Layla Bennett, Logan watched the moon rise over the city that had once rejected her, she knew that true revenge had never been about punishing Daniel Harper. It was about building something so beautiful, fair, and lasting that his rejection would become nothing more than a footnote in the much larger story that was being written. If this story of overcoming prejudice and achieving justice with dignity touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe.